Hello and welcome to Middlesex Moments, the radio show of Middlesex Community College. I'm Dr. Steve Minkler, the college's academic dean, and your host for these programs. Middlesex Moments comes to you from the radio studios in the Middlesex Community College Center for New Media, located in our main campus in Middletown. And today we have an episode that we call Meet the Professors, and joining me today is Professor Pam Frost. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Steve.
And thanks for joining me today. Pam, you are a professor of mathematics, and you've been at the college for quite some time now, yes?
I think it's around 25 years
25
at Middlesex.
years. Wow. So with all those years of experience teaching mathematics here and in other places in your career, I think there's one burning question everybody in our listening audience wants to know the answer to, which is, why are so many people afraid of math?
Well, it's a difficult question and it's not a simple answer. Lots of research coming out lately has pointed to pre-K and early elementary experiences being a separator in terms of achievement gaps in all subjects, but in particular in math. I now have grandchildren and I keep reminding my children the first words are important, but so are those first numbers, and making numbers fun and seeing math in the world around you. A lot of children don't get that experience because their parents don't have that perspective of the world to begin with, or their educational surroundings, whether it's pre-K or early elementary school. Most people that go into those fields are not the ones that love math, generally. I'm sure there's some great exceptions. I hope there are. And math, unless you really know it well, it's hard to see it in everyday living. Like we're sitting here in the studio and I see windows, so I see arrays of numbers. But I'm sure most other people think I'm crazy. They don't quite see that. But students generally show up to school ready and eager to learn math. They're excited. But somewhere, something goes wrong, and it could have to do with the way something's being taught. It might not meet their needs. It could have something to do, because math is so sequential, of moving around. Army children, or I guess service, where they move every few years. They have some real issues in math generally because the curriculum's different in every place. Mm-hmm. So they're just getting the hang of multiplication, and the school they moved to is now doing division. How can you turn something around that you don't know forward? Mm-hmm. So it's complex. There's a number of key points. Fractions, one of them. The beginning of algebra is another one where we tend to separate. And so by the time people come to higher education, there's been a lot of segregating going on. And we don't have too many people showing up at our doors ready for advanced mathematics. Doesn't mean they can't learn it. In one advantage, it's like a do-over. We get to start over. We are now adults. We can control things, or some things, in our environment, and we can try again. And that's probably the place I get my greatest joy, is working with students who get their do-over and make the best of it and rewrite their math history. And they came in scared, they're not going to graduate because of math or something, and to turn that around and actually have them continue taking math. And, I do once in a while get in a little side, don't tell anybody, but I actually like this kind of comment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of funny that people are either proud that they don't know math or they're embarrassed that they like it.
Yeah, what's wrong with that picture? I mean, that's American culture.
Yeah. That's
not universal. But yeah, that's so true. You don't walk into a cocktail party and say very proudly, I'm illiterate. Yeah, right. and people jaw would drop. Yeah. But they do say that about math very proudly.
Well, when we come back from the break, we'll have more with Pam Frost, professor of mathematics here at Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, and you're listening to Middlesex Moments. And we're back with Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, here with Pam Frost, who's a math professor at the college. And before the break, we were talking about why many people are afraid of math. And I think the second most urgent question on people's minds is, if I take a math class in college, like algebra, what am I ever going to use this for? So I'm sure, like we were talking about before, Pam, you said that sometimes it gets to how people were taught math in the past and we're doing a catch-up or a reset. I'm sure you've had a lot of aha moments with students in your career who have finally come to you, taken a good college math class, and have realized, wow, I'm really good at this, or I can see how I can use this.
So one of the difficult things with math, especially beginning the algebra process, there's just some basic things you have to learn first before you can do anything too interesting with it. So there is a certain amount of just learning basic skills, basic vocabulary, things like grammar, an analogy with the English language. You can really only write a basic essay with some basic form and some ideas. So you have to learn some things first. And I think traditionally the way we taught it, I've been doing this for a long time, and I think we used to emphasize much more skill and drill. And now I try as best I can, anytime we're learning something, to put it in context and to make it fun and engaging as much as possible. Last semester I was being observed. That's dreaded moments when your supervisor's in your classroom, but you want to, show off your best stuff. And the concept of slope, we talk about it, we have a formula, we can calculate it forever. But I found a very short video clip of a subway station landing coming up to the street in New York City. And one of the steps was a different height. And every single person that came up tripped. Nobody fell and hurt themselves, so it was okay to watch. But the students laughed, and then you could see that aha, like, oh, that's why it's got to be the same. Our brain, literally, it has to do with neuroscience, I've been told, is not wired, even if you know it's coming, to adjust your height.
Mm-hmm.
So something so basic to the understanding of linear functions, these students really kind of got in a minute or two video clip. That was funny. That was the side benefit. Then we can dig into, okay, well, what mathematically makes that happen? What does that look like? And so now there's some interest on the part of the student. They understand its importance, how it fits. Okay, how do I work with that? So I think as a field of math educators, we've learned a lot over the years, and more recently, I think we've made big strides in that direction because of the technology we have available. We can bring the real world into the classroom, and we can sometimes bring the classroom to the real world and merge those. So students aren't just learning algebra skills in isolation, like find X. Oh, I found it. It was hidden behind the book. To make it meaningful and real. And I'm finding many more students get it and feel successful and find value in it. Sometimes you just have to have some prerequisite skills to do something. And that's why math is sequential, and we have to take certain subjects like algebra before, let's say, statistics, which is extremely useful. Any field you go into, if you do research, you have to interpret statistics. If you watch sports and want to understand what those announcers are talking about, you've got to understand statistics.
Right. Or if you want to understand what the news media are feeding you about the world around us, it's usually presented in statistical form. And if you don't know the ins and outs of that, you could be quite lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, a simple example is a graph. You can make a graph look steep or flat depending on your scale. Very simple. But if you don't understand that, someone can take very full advantage of you or mislead you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as a consumer, as a citizen, it's critical to have those basic skills.
So it sounds like some of what you do in your math classes is you're helping students discover the world of math that really is all around them every day of their lives, even if they haven't recognized it as such.
We try.
Yeah.
Again, there are certain things like factoring a polynomial is pretty hard to find that in the real world. We can certainly use that skill to solve real world problems. We can take a golf ball, and if it's teed up an inch or so, and how high is it going to get, and where is it going to land, and things like that, and analyze that. A basketball shot, same sort of thing. But we, again, still need some basic skills in isolation to get to that point. So it's blending those that's always the challenge.
Mm-hmm. And if you think back of all the math classes that you've taught, is there one example you can think of a student who really kind of took off and went beyond what your expectations were or what you thought that student's potential was? A student who really just kind of flew with it. They were taking in everything you had to offer and kept wanting more.
Well, I could think of a lot of students, but I think the premise is I try as best I can not to have expectations of a student in the beginning, to believe in their full potential to learn math and excel with it. And I think that's critical because I do know some colleagues who don't believe certain people can learn math or that left brain, right brain. And I have both sides, and I'm proud of them. I think that, I want to use them both. I want to build all the synapses I can. But I think that expectation up front can be very limiting if the teacher, parent, or whoever feels that, well, we're lucky if we can get you to meet your requirements. I know it's been a while, but some studies have shown the more math you know, the more money you make. And if that's of importance to you, the more math you can take and master and succeed with leaves you with lots more opportunities. Every time you don't take a math course, you choose to do something else and kind of cut that off too soon, you're limiting your potential and your possibilities. A former colleague in art who's since retired said, how can you describe the world around you with art if you don't fully understand the world around you? And mathematics is part of that. And music and mathematics. There's so many connections. But I think more for students, it's them not expecting to like it or they're expecting to fail. And if it goes too far, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they really believe they can't do this, they won't. So very often, especially with lower level classes, I start with some work on sort of figuring out what their attitude is coming into the classroom, teaching them a little bit about, how the brain works and the fact that we all have this potential, we all can do this, to help them believe in themselves and their possibilities before you even start. Because very often the student themselves is the limiting factor. But then if they find they can do it, that just adds excitement and makes them want to keep doing it. Nobody likes to bang their head against the wall, and for many students that's what it feels like when they're doing math without the appropriate instruction and environment and so forth. So we want to avoid the pain, build in success, and success builds on success, so that kind of takes off and runs with it. But students who thought, I just need to meet my requirement, and then decide, I'll take the next course. Let's see. And they again, the more math you take, the more you can do with it. So now it's getting fun. Like in a pre-calculus class, one of the activities I do is record a tuning fork. So you take a tuning fork, strike it, and record it, and you get a lovely sinusoidal wave. And then they have to apply their trig and find the parameters that fit for the amplitude and period and so forth to fit that wave. And then they can go back and predict using some formulas what tone that tuning fork was. And so I might be saying the wrong word, but and with the frequency and so forth. So, but you've got to know some math to do that. You can't just jump in and do that. So I think most people find if they can meet with some success and keep their minds like open-minded about it, that they'll end up taking a lot more math than they ever expected, and therefore open those possibilities.
Okay. And for students like that, we now have an option for them in a new math studies program. And tell us more about how that works here at Middlesex.
Well, that's an exciting change that came out of the transfer articulation program, where we now have pathways in different disciplines like math. We never had a math major at Middlesex. We were basically what I called a service department. We offered courses that students needed for other majors. And so we would tailor our courses accordingly. But now we have the possibility of a student doing the first 2 years of mathematics here at Middlesex and then transferring with the full package with the basic education requirements, the general education requirements, along with the math requirements, to one of the state universities in the system and be junior status in the math degree program. And that's huge, because math being so sequential, if you're not at that junior level with your mathematics, that's going to mess up everything and end up taking 5, 6, 7 more years or for the total degree program. So that's really important. And smaller schools, I mean, Middlesex is a mid-sized school, but we generally don't have enough enrollments to offer all these upper level courses. We don't have enough programs, including now the math, that require them. So it's given us the ability to meet more students' math needs, offering a full range of courses.
And our enrollments in those courses actually have been pretty strong in the last few years, the upper level courses.
They've been very strong, yes. And at one point we were looking at different ways to work with other schools, the students, be on one campus and remote from another, and yet we haven't had to go that route because we've been able to fill classes and retain those students. I think part of it is this transfer articulation program where there's now the motivation to stay at Middlesex or any of the community colleges because they're not going to lose credits when they transfer. So between that and us being able to offer more on a regular basis, they're working right through our curriculum. Because in math, typically you start pre-calculus or calculus, and there's Calc 1, 2, 3, and some other math courses that you need to do in those first 2 years. So we're very often excited when a student comes in and begins at intermediate algebra at a credit level, when in fact there's several more levels before you get into that math track.
Okay. Well, I think after the break we can talk a little bit more about things mathematics, but also learn more from Pam Frost about her commitments to environmental sustainability and civic engagement, both here at Middlesex Community College and in her other part of her life. So for you're listening to Middlesex Moments. I'm Steve Minkler. See you after the break. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments. I'm Steve Minkler, coming to you from Middlesex Community College, and I'm here with Pam Frost, who's a math professor, and we're learning more about our professors here at the college. And Pam has been a math professor here for many years. And Pam, what are some of the things that you've been involved with at the college in your time with us that have not involved the teaching of math, that kind of stand out in your head the most?
Well, when I began here at Middlesex, I had 2 young children. I was a single parent. So balancing work life was always a challenge, getting into new curriculum and so forth. So I'm not sure I did that much. I remember being on some committees, and I think probably too soon chaired some committees, and got to know the wider Middlesex community. And that was really fun and exciting. There were a lot of folks who had started the college that were here at that time, and to work with them and learn from them, mostly through committee work type of things, was really exciting. I know at some point I created something called a Learning Strategies class for math. It was a 1-credit class that students took alongside of math, so we did things like math anxiety and test-taking skills, note-taking skills, things like that. So for me, it was really fun to deal directly in the classroom with something that wasn't math, but that supported the math. So there was that connection, and that was really fun. I was one of the Honor Society, Phi Theta Kappa's faculty advisors for at least a decade, and that was wonderful because the students back then were generally a little more mature, older, and part-time, so they stayed longer. And so you really could develop relationships with students and work with the officers. We did so much community service. We worked with the battered women's shelter, the food collection, the food pantry in town. Depending on the interests of the students involved at the time, we always had some community service. So for me, it was wonderful to get to know students at a different level beyond the classroom over a longer period of time, and also to be involved and support all these community service activities. And that was a really special experience for me. I then had been involved with bringing in a new governance structure and was the chair of that council that basically was the nucleus of the experience for the first 2 years.
Governance being the way that we kind of run the organization inside the college, right? To make sure there's faculty and staff input into everything?
Yes, to get input, to work with our administrators collaboratively to move the college forward. So it was engaging everybody and trying to get them all to row in the same direction together. So bringing on this new structure, there was a learning curve, but it was really nice to kind of help facilitate that and move things forward. And then, that was up and running. I guess maybe I get bored a little bit after a while. I like new things. I like new initiatives. So then my attention turned a bit to sustainability, sustainable issues. I've actually taken a number of our courses that we offer over the years. Graphic design, I've taken world religions, but I took sustainable living. And it was a fabulous course because the curriculum was current texts. We were reading websites and blogs, and I mean, there was a textbook, but we were really bringing our world into the classroom, processing it, and then turning that into action. And for me, we had a sustainability committee on campus, and I chaired that for a little while, and we were trying to educate and engage faculty, staff, and students in sustainable issues. I myself, because I'm a gardener, wanted to take this gorgeous campus that is perfectly beautiful with just grass and turn it into an oasis of sustainable landscaping. We can see from the hill out into the Connecticut Valley and beyond on a good day, and I just wanted it to bloom. So we got lots of grants and got work crews together and put in a lot of gardens and tried to take away some invasive plants, and we held workshops. We had lots of partners. So that was an exciting time. Since then, I've, on a personal note, now own a good bit of land and am very, very busy doing that on my own property and trying to live as sustainably as possible. So for me, it's become a lifestyle, and I've integrated that and try to bring that to my classroom in terms of applications for math as well. But more recently, one of the things that's really gotten me excited in the math realm, I know you said off of math, but it's a different path, is something called Open Educational Resources, or OER. And OER, in math anyway, what I've been involved in is developing materials, both online and print materials, textbooks, although we've mostly done workbooks, that support students' work, but the teachers are writing them, the teachers are developing them, and we're basically just getting them copied, printed for student use. So we are working without the typical publisher. And for me, it's given me so much freedom to create, to have curriculum that is aligned with my feelings on pedagogy and the latest research, as well as putting things in context and the needs of students in Connecticut, because I've worked with other colleagues on some of these books, and people across the state are using them. Of course, the big seller for students is what used to cost about $180 to $200 package of online and textbook, now costs under $30.
Yeah, and this has to be great news for our listeners who are college students themselves, or maybe have children or family members who are college students. That's, especially at a community college, sometimes the books can cost almost as much as the course.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that was the initial motivator for me to get into it, was saving students money. But what I found was this whole world of creativity that I could directly, quickly, easily impact my curriculum, what I'm doing in my classroom day to day. I used to spend tremendous amount of time making up materials on my own to supplement, to try to bring in the latest research and recommendations on technology and, like I said, math and context, pedagogy, and all the rest. Now it's in the book. I mean, not 100% because it's always changing, but we're pretty much doing an edition a year. And it's not like it costs the students money because we're doing it. It doesn't cost anybody any more. We just spend our time improving the book and incorporating new ideas, and we have a book. We literally have a Word document. That is our book. And it's so easy to work with and create. But I guess the best part, I mean, that's the fun part for me. But the best part, the most rewarding part, is students are succeeding at a much higher rate. I mean, we've only been dabbling in this for a little over a year, but we had to collect some data. And the initial data, I just used my classes before open source and after, and in one case, up to 10 percentage points better success rate from one class before to the one with. I'm the same teacher. I'm pretty much doing the same thing, but these materials are helping students learn, and that's really important.
So, and we had a workshop here at the college that talked about two things related to what you just said. One is that the material itself is written by the person who's standing in front of the room or their colleagues, so it's much more local, it's much more focused on what the needs are, like you just said. But also, because the cost has come way down, there's far less chance that you're going to have students in your classroom that don't have the book because of the cost, right? And that was brought up at this workshop. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Middlesex as a whole has been extremely supportive of all of our efforts in the case of OER. Our library staff have been beyond fabulous. They're so supportive and helpful and been a great resource, as well as the statewide folks. So we've had tons of support in this area, but the online component for math, you have access to the PDF of the book. So worst case scenario, you can print your own book. However, I've had a few students try that, and they've told me after the fact they'd never do that again, because it just puts the onus much more on them to have their materials at the right place at the right time, versus paying, again, less than $30 to have them purchased all at one time in one place.
So in the short amount of time we have left, any good advice for a student who's apprehensive about taking a math class again and maybe wanting to do that at Middlesex?
I think the most important thing is to start at the right place, to do as many assessments. We talk in the state about multiple forms of assessment for placement. And because you want to start at a place where there's some comfort, but some room to grow. If you underplace, you're going to be bored and get turned off. Why am I doing this? If you overplace, you're going to be overwhelmed and immediately say, see, I can't do this, and end of story. So where you begin that journey is really important. We currently offer 2-week workshops, and sometimes a different amount of times, that are free. So that's a great way to kind of put your toe in the water and see how it feels. Come visit. Come visit our professors, our classes, see what it's about. Don't just show up and sign up for a class. Don't go cold. We have orientations. We have lots of things to help you make that transition. Talk to us. I always say, if you're going to take a course, go talk to the teacher. You need to be able to have someone you can have a conversation with. And we have some fabulous instructors here in math at Middlesex.
And fabulous conversations is what this is all about. And I really want to thank you for joining me today, Pam.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, Pam Frost, professor of math here at Middlesex Community College, and you've been listening to Middlesex Moments. And as Pam said, we invite you to visit us here at our main campus in Middletown, 100 Training Hill Road, up the hill from Saybrook Road here in Middletown. We have our new Meriden Center located at Platt High School in the city of Meriden, where if you can take college classes there in our late afternoon and evening program, and our growing online campus, which is open 24/7 worldwide year-round. So for Middlesex Community College, I thank you for listening to Middlesex Moments. I'm Steve Minkler, and we'll see you next time.